WBNE.
Hello, and welcome to episode 166, all about the Rings of Power, Season 1, Episode 1, A Shadow of the Past, being the 166th part of That's What I'm Talking About. Hello, my name is Mary Clay. If that's too complicated for you, just call me MC. I've been experiencing the world of J.R.R. Tolkien for the first time, but right now we are all experiencing Rings of Power for the first time together. Today I'm joined by the best of Tolkientok, because I couldn't decide on one guest. I'm bringing them all on. I'm joined by Knewbettadobetta, WizardWayKris, and Don Marshall 72. Welcome, everyone.
Woo! Hello, everyone.
What's up, guys? What's going on?
We're so happy to be here.
The most ambitious. It's like in the mid 2000s when That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana dropped on Disney Channel.
God. That's a deep cut.
The most ambitious crossover event since Avengers Endgame.
Amazing.
So before we jump into the I don't know, rundown of getting into the nitty gritty of what was going on, listeners, if you have not yet watched the first episode of Rings of Power, I get it. All of our lives are busy. So the first couple minutes will just become some kind of like spoiler-free discussion, just some general thoughts, maybe get you motivated to turn us off and go turn on Rings of Power, and then you can come back to us. So the first little bit will be spoiler free if you haven't watched it yet. And then there will be spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled and you haven't watched, I would also say episode 2, because at this point episode 2 has also dropped, but we will mostly just be talking about episode 1. So does anyone want to jump in with their, I mean, I'm sure we all have thoughts, obviously.
Yeah.
Who would like to go first?
Don?
I mean, I'll hop in here first. Yeah,
we're all too polite.
Yeah, that's
why I just chose one. I'm like, and Don.
Sure, I will happily jump in. Wow. The fact that it's finally here and that we've been leading to 4 years of build up and just the sheer number of positive responses that I have seen, one, makes my heart so happy. And I'm vain enough to know that my own enjoyment of the series will not be soured by anyone that maybe doesn't enjoy it or uses the term woke unironically. But it was so good for me. Like, I loved it. There were a couple of things that I had, nitpicks about, but the fact that they're nitpicks for me just makes it all the better. Like what an opening, what a scene setter for visually stunning. The props, the costumes. I liked a lot of the dialogue. I thought they did a good job with the elves. The Harfoots, I'm quoting a friend of mine, Tori Fox, the Harfoots have my whole heart.
Have my whole heart.
Oh my gosh.
Anything bad happens to Nori, I will riot.
I will stop
my
watching the show.
Yeah. But yeah,
Rage
I loved
quit.
it. Loved it. So good.
That's awesome. I guess I'll jump in here. It's been no secret. I said I absolutely love the show. I said it was near perfect for me. With saying that, I also said that there are a couple things that I did not like, but being that I know the context of what they're able to do and what they're not able to do, it might as well be mist, it's smoke. It doesn't matter what I think about those things. I'm a lore expert, so I'm going to look at it from a different lens, and I got to take myself out of that. Everybody that's going to be watching it from a new perspective or not so deep lore perspective, they're going to love what they did. And I know, hey, they only have certain things they can do with this IP, and I'm going to enjoy it. I know that the second age is really just bullet points. Whatever we fit in between is what they made up, and the drama they wanted to build for a TV show. This isn't a movie. It's going to be carried differently. With that knowledge, there's really no way you can hate this show. Honestly, if you do, you're just like a toxic fan, bro. And it's funny because the show is getting reviewed so good, and then you can clearly see, the review bombing that they do with all shows that they have a female, a female protagonist, or person of color or everything. Like that trick doesn't work anymore. Like everybody knows.
Heaven
what you're
forbid
doing.
we actually have a little bit of progression in the genre. Oh no.
All the shows with that stuff get review bombed, and it's like clear to see, and the algorithm picks it up, and they literally the reviewers literally tell you, oh yeah, this is getting review bombed. Don't even pay attention to that. Like,
yeah,
it's actually.
Speaking of which, I was looking up some ratings and whatnot before we were jumping on the call. Metacritic critics review is a 71, and then you go to user reviews and it's 2.4. So obviously,
that's laughably.
Yeah.
Same thing on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
Same thing on Rotten Tomatoes, but you see that with She-Hulk. You see that with all the shows that people are upset about, and it's hilarious. But I love the show. It's definitely the most beautiful show I've ever seen. Definitely
visually stunning.
I know a lot of people might not be grasping the story right now, but being a lore master, I know where they're going, especially with Celebrimbor. So like I'm excited. So let me stop before I get into spoilers.
My first impression, especially because we do open with a scene in Valinor, I feel like you have to set up what was lost in order to set up the character of Galadriel first, and they did that exceedingly well. The visuals were fantastic. I mean, I have small criticisms when it comes to pacing or, trying to force a storyline to happen. Like, there are a couple bits that I thought were clunky, but these are never like series breaking criticisms from me. These are things that I sort of expect they're going to find the pace and sink into it as the first season goes along. I think it's strange that so many people judge an entire show based on the first episode or two, because the whole point is that it's going to be a slow burn. That's why it's a 5-season series. So I have seen my share of criticism, but most of it at least has been not the over the top, primarily racist and sexist stuff. So at least people have been kind in my comment section lately, which is always preferable, because then at least they're like, this is just my opinion. It's cool if other people like it. And I feel like that's the approach most people should have. If you're not caring for it, just don't. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. It's really that simple. But I very much enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. And the use of Elvish and little tiny details that I got to pick apart was just very satisfying for me.
Yes,
Chris,
I knew you'd be eating that up. Yes.
You went on this Twitter thread for hours just decoding all of the Elvish in the show.
Oh, yeah. And I did that on no sleep. I did 8 or 9 hours of translation work straight and posted it immediately, which was probably not the best idea, because it's up there now, but Twitter doesn't allow you to edit anything. And I have since learned several mistakes that I made. And so I have to figure out how to fix that.
I mean, the fact that you did any of that at all, like the day, like hours, for free too, like hours after the shows had dropped, is astounding.
I was gonna head to bed, but I was contacted by someone who's like, and it's go time, and I'm like, oh no, when do you need the information by? And he was like, 4 a.m. and I'm like, okay.
But you did it. You were dedicated.
Panic mode initiate, and I sped translated. Honestly, the hardest thing is that the way that they write things in the written form of Elvish, the Tengwar, they write it phonetically, but they're basing it off of someone who's speaking with a heavy British or Welsh accent. So the vowels are really hard to understand some of the times.
Well, which Morbius Clark is, because she's Welsh.
Right. I would say not all of the situations where it was written like that were for characters who sound that way, but whoever did the actual translation work, which is probably Carl Hofstetter.
Bless that.
Yeah.
Man and all he does.
Yeah.
That's incredible, the amount of detail that's going into something. So from my perspective, such a minor thing that I did not even pay attention to or notice. And that's so incredible. Like the amount of detail that went into that. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously we'll go into more details about all of this. I think some just some like general thoughts from me. I had a friend text me who was really skeptical about the show, and she texted me like Friday night or Saturday and was like, I enjoyed it. And just that, and I was like, see, I think like at worst, it just would be not that great of a show. I don't think there will ever be, like, even if it's not a good show, I think it's still going to be very fun for all of us to have entertainment 1 hour a week for 2 months. And then if we all forget about it until the next season comes out, if that's all it is, then, whatever. But
that's how I am with Stranger Things. I absorb Stranger Things. I'm obsessed with it for like 5 or 6 weeks after. And then I kind of forget. And then I come back and then I fall in love with it again and find the next 80s banger to listen to with all my friends.
I am so sick of hearing Running Up That Hill, just throwing it out.
No, it's still so good.
It's all over every radio station. Oh my gosh. I'm like, pick a different 80s hit. Anyway. Okay, so thus ends our spoiler-free section. If you haven't watched and you don't want to be spoiled, turn off. If you have no intention of watching and you just want to hear us talk about this show, then by all means, keep listening. So first, I thought we would just, I'll just do a brief rundown of some of the main characters that we see in this episode. We obviously see Galadriel. We see little baby Galadriel. Such a cute little child. And then Morphet Clark. Amazing. Bless all rain. And then we're introduced to one of the main Harfoots, Nori, which is short for Eleanor, I think. We see Elrond be introduced, and we have another elf who is on patrol, Arondir, and a human woman, Bronwyn. And then some minor characters that are introduced in this episode or who might come up in future episodes. There's Theo, Bronwyn's son. We get a very brief introduction to Celebrimbor, who will be very important in the future.
Oh,
which
yes.
we will leave unsaid for now.
Pivotal role for sure.
Yeah, people who know, and I only vaguely know, so.
Well, his short appearance was the most. He set up the most with what he did.
Yeah. When it comes to execution of delivering the first impression of a character, Charles Edwards, who plays Celebrimbor, he managed to pack so much into the few lines that he had in only 2 scenes, and there was so much criticism for that choice of actor for that particular role, and I was so satisfied.
I was one of them too.
I was absolutely one of them, and I was eating crow because I literally was like,
I tried so hard to be his champion. I'm like, guys, no, this is a great actor, and he's going to be able to deliver the energy that we need from this character, and I'm so happy that I was right on that, because there was a lot of concern about that character and that portrayal of the character.
A lot of people don't see where the story's going. They're like, I don't know what's going on, what's happening. But if you're a lore master, you literally watched his performance, and what the things he said literally set up the events that are going to happen. And it was like magic watching that. It was like, if you're not in the know, then, oh my God, just look at my expression, because I'm smiling from ear to ear right now, and I completely flip-flopped, and I was like, yo, that was the dopest performance of everyone. I was blown away. I was like, wow, he just set up everything, his motivations, his oh my goodness, everything, the way he was talking about the hammer with Feanor. I didn't like that he didn't call Feanor grandpa, but
there is a moment where Celebrimbor is talking about his grandfather Feanor and how he fashioned the Silmarils, and he goes off on a little tiny tangent telling this story, sort of, they say, and he expands upon it that Morgoth, the boss of Sauron, was so enraptured by the Silmarils that all he could do for weeks was just stare at them And it's only when a tear of his fell on one of the Silmarils and he was faced with the evil of his own reflection that spell was broken. But he manages to then turn that around, because not only does that story sound like it could have been in the books,
it 100%.
Wasn't.
Yeah,
no, but it sounded like
great.
It could have been. Wonderful writing on the writer's part, but delivered wonderfully. And then he's just like, Feanor's work nearly turned the heart of the Dark Lord himself. What has my work ever done? Yeah. And I'm like, and you just see that self-deprecating and that yearning, for validation.
He wants to make something great. Yeah, sorry.
He wants to make something that can even come close to comparing.
I think his exact word that he uses is he wants to do something of power. And I'm like, well, that's like half the name of the show right there. So I think that's, our clue that like this guy is like what he is setting up is very important.
He almost does a little burn for Feanor, because he's like, I want to move past mere jewel craft and create something of true power.
I forgot about that.
Like, burn, Feanor.
Yeah.
That was one of those scenes where I was so happy to be proven wrong, because so many people have been calling me an Amazon shill for months now. I'm used to it. But like when I first saw the Charles Edwards announcement, I'm like, ooh, okay, dude's a little old, not crazy about the costume, but let's take a step back.
I'm not crazy about the costume.
Yeah, still not crazy about the costume. Yeah, this is one of my criticisms.
Listen, Galadriel's had like 6 costume changes already. I'll give Feanor the chance to wear something different. The moment I saw him on screen, I'm like, ooh, what's he gonna say? And then he doesn't say anything, and it's his presence alone. I'm like, okay, these showrunners are going for a slow burn. And then episode 2 hits. I'm like, all right, you've got one chance to do this. Prove me wrong. And I've never been more happy to be wrong, because the few minutes that he's on screen, like New said, right? If you know, and if you don't, you're intrigued by what he's saying. There's the lore dump, the hammer. By the way, the props community is having an absolute field day with these first 2 episodes. I'm friends with a couple of cosplayers and prop makers that are like, yeah, this is the next big thing. Get ready.
I just want to know if Lauren is already making another Galadriel.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
She's already on it.
She mentioned, and this is public information at least, she did mention that she was trying to update her outfit, partly because she got Morveth Clark to sign the
bracer.
Arm bracer, so she has to redo those.
Yes,
but in addition,
she
wanted to expand her chainmail and put all of the stars on it we saw.
So cool.
So she wants to update it. I'm sure she'll get another costume or 2 done.
Yeah.
If we can jump from high to high, that being one of my favorite scenes, the exposition, it was absolutely marvelous. But
I'm wondering if it's the same as mine.
My favorite scene in the entire series, which I just made a TikTok about, was actually, and it might throw you, but it was actually when Theo's friend was talking to Arondir. And he was speaking on how the elves, treat them, and it was a bit of a tension there, and it was excellent knowing that the history of those peoples from the Southlands being descendants of the Easterlings. So, reading the Silmarillion, you know that the Easterlings were the humans that sided with Morgoth, and they betrayed the elves in the Near Neath Anoidiad, and that I always say this every time I talk about this. There's a line that I just love. It's simplistic, but it's just wonderful. And the elves never forget this.
I literally read that like last week, I think.
Never forget this. And when they do that, you know that they're tipping their hat to you and they're saying, "This is look at this."
The elves did not forget.
They did not forget this. Yeah. So with the time compression, I'm seeing that Gil-galad's kingdom is spread far. Which it was later in the Second Age where it was spread that far when Sauron was gone. But they, with the compression, it spread all the way to the south, and there's towers there, and they're watching, and they're making sure, and they're resentful toward those men. And the dialogue there, I that was my favorite part, because it explains so much. It gives the men reason to be, upset with the elves, to be away from them, to be like, whatever. You see that the men are living not less than grand. They're not living like the Numenorians. They're not living like the elves. They're simple farmer folk. So it says in the Silmarillion they're living backwards. They can easily, without breaking any IP, just have them living the simplistic lives. Whereas in the Third Age, we know the good cities or whatever are like built up. Gondor is strong and built up and everything like that. So it's good to see that where they're going with that. And I actually just think that was really good storytelling. So we can understand the motivations of the men. And
real quick. Sorry,
ahead.
this is completely off topic. Mary, are you drinking out of a Pizza John mug?
It is, yes.
That is amazing. That is so good. Sorry, that's the Vlog
The other
Brothers
says,
reference from.
"Don't talk to me before I've had my pizza, John."
Oh, wow.
That's so funny.
That's amazing.
I'm not in the know on that one.
This is like early.
It's an old elder.
It's old.
Like millennials on the internet.
Yeah.
Who had too much access to free internet.
Pretty sure I'm the
we were
oldest out of
children.
I think you might be. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you, Chris. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I like that I'm very happy that they showed different ideologies so early, because the elves are always seen as this ethereal, supernatural force that everyone loves them. But we see here, not everyone loves them, and they have reason. Because something like this, because we've sort of condensed the Second Age, this conflict that they're talking about, it was hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. The man says in the pub like, those of us who were in that fight died thousands of years ago.
Yeah, it's like the thing that's so interesting is that you see the elves, thinking, hey, we're helping. We're helping keep you on the right track, but them interfering is pretty much the only reason why there's still tension.
Yeah.
So we sometimes talk about in the queer community and the BIPOC community, the intent versus impact. The intent is to help. The impact is you're not actually helping. So we sort of have some of that energy. There was a lot of overtones and overlap of thematic elements when it came to the Southlands and the way that they are interacting with the elves.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question real quick? I don't want to overtake the podcast. I'm curious. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, because obviously Ishmael Cruz Cordova has faced a number of very racist backlashes. How did you feel about them putting the black elf in what was more or less a lore accurate kind of like racist situation?
That was so funny, because I literally had made a video about that, and I posted, and I just made a video about that in my last video. And one black gentleman had been like, "How dare they do this to the black elf?" And I'm like, "You guys are taking it out of context, and the reason you are is because I didn't even get to say that, because I just explained the lore so they know it wasn't racist."
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's like, it's lore accurate. Give it a chance, guys.
This is not Earth. This is Middle Earth. So they're taking what happens on Earth and they're saying black guy. No, but this is an elf, which is a different race in that sense in Middle Earth. Race in Middle Earth isn't a thing. Only races.
Are you guys talking about, just want to make sure we're all clear, are you guys talking about how like in the pub they call them pointy eared?
When he said knife ears,
and
you people, the you people, I was like, oh man.
It's a very pointed, very triggering thing for black people, because we're called you people, and it means you black people or whatever. And any demographic that's, it could be, toward the queer community or anything like that. But specifically, I know as a person of color, it's like very like, it means like you're less than us. Why? How dare you? Type of like that. So
yeah, that scene was wonderfully done, I felt like, and they really captured the tension between them. But when you put it into the context of Middle Earth, it's not it's color of your skin thing.
It's not a color of the skin.
You are an elf,
and then they hired a person of color to play the elf, and he was in that situation, which it could be interpreted that way. But the thing about it was kind of flip flopped. So if anybody was to say you people, it would have been the elves saying that to
Yeah, yeah.
They're on the
Which
higher
I
office.
think the elves have a reason to be prejudiced against these particular humans.
So it doesn't.
And they flip.
That's what I was picking up. And later on in that scene, when they fill in some of the plot for listeners to make, if you're like following along where we are, after they leave the village and they go back to their like watchtower, they find out that the king has essentially called off the war and is like, we're safe now, yay, no Sauron here. And he goes up into, Arondir goes up into the watchtower to kind of look over everything, and the watch warden is with him, and they're looking over the land, and they're saying like, the blood of the people who fought for Morgoth still runs through the veins of these people. And so I definitely was getting like a lot of like, the elves carry a lot of prejudice against these men.
And it was purposeful. It was purposeful.
There's a feud there.
Done very well, but it's based on fact from the book. And you can see it. So I said in my video, it's art imitating life, life imitating art. So this is, if you remember 2001, when the towers fell, right? People were so racist against Muslims, but all Muslims aren't bad, and they were all getting a bad rap. And then people had feelings toward this, and it's like, this isn't right. But then it's like some people just wanted to be safe, and they say, "Oh, we don't know." It's such a slippery slope. Yeah. But you're looking at the elves like, I know elves from the lore that I know. The elves are the good guys, but what are they doing? This isn't right. This doesn't feel right. So it's a way that
it makes you uncomfortable.
It makes you uncomfortable on purpose.
That's on purpose.
I love seeing these gray areas of seeing characters that were like, well, wait a minute, I thought these people were our good guys and these people are our bad guys, and like, what's going on? And so I love seeing those gray areas play out.
Forgive me my use of the language, but it's easy when it's a white person just saying, "Oh, what we're just being protected by our country," and it's hard to see that when you're in that, where you're yourself and you're in that situation, which you wholeheartedly could mean that, but it's hard how it could be offensive to somebody else. So them putting it in the sense where definitely the elves are the good guys. The elves aren't the bad guys. That's clear, right? Right. As of right now, that's not the case. But you seeing that, and it makes you feel uncomfortable, and you're like, "Oh, they're being it's a wake up call." So, but it's actually factual in the story.
And they continue that.
Yeah, it's something that plays out over the course of our history. And I mean, it's interesting that you brought up like 9/11 and incidences with Muslim Americans, but I was thinking of how during World War II in the United States, there were Japanese and Asian American internment camps. And also something that I learned about recently is that there were German American internment camps in the United States as well. Wow, we got really dark and deep, so I'll switch us.
That question.
No, that's a great question.
To continue that, though, like the gray area, exploring the gray area of each character is gonna come into play. We even saw that with Galadriel, the way that they've showed her as, she's fighting fire with fire. And Gil-galad is not thrilled about it, to the point that he's like, how can I get rid of Galadriel?
Yeah.
I'm going to say, good job, team, and send all of my best warriors to Valinor just to get rid of her. And so, like, at first, I was really critical on that. I'm like, why on earth would Gil-galad do that? That makes no sense. I know why they're doing it storyline-wise, because we have to get one of the main characters to Numenor in order to tie Numenor into the plot. So I get it. But like his motivation there was just like, she's not helping. She thinks that she's helping, but she keeps disobeying orders. And what do I do with her? Yeah. Not only does it set up a complexity for Galadriel as a character, but also Gil-galad.
Yeah.
And I like that we're going into sort of the gray area of where people think that they're helping, but they're not necessarily, and how that causes tension between different characters and different peoples.
Yeah, let's jump to talking about Galadriel's side of the story. First, the show opens and skips over what I have been reading for the past 6 months within 3 minutes.
Thanks, guys.
I was just kind of laughing because it says like, Morgoth destroys our light, and then it says like a legion of elves went to war, and I was like, well, that's one way to put it. like we left our homeland, and I'm like, yeah, okay.
We can't get
You're
into the
leaving out some important
kinslaying.
details. Yeah, you can't get into it.
Details.
Yeah, let's not
Yeah.
talk about what happened to those ships.
Yeah.
It sucked that they couldn't put Balerion on the map, though. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
When the camera sweeps over and they're like, and we went to a land called, and I was like, Balerion, and then she said Middle Earth, and I was like,
I
oh.
was like,
Yeah.
Side note,
which the whole thing, to be fair, is Middle Earth regardless.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
but-
I don't know if you guys would know the answer to this question, but I noticed that they are specifically not saying Finrod, and they are also like, they kept saying my brother, your brother,
Yes.
and then they also were not saying Gil-galad, they were saying the king. They weren't saying like King Gil-galad. Is it because they don't have rights to the Silmarillion that they're avoiding those names?
I think Gil-galad's in at least the Fellowship. I don't know if Finrod makes an appearance
Finrod
in the
is-
appendices, though.
Finrod is, they can, because they wouldn't have been able to promote that it was Finrod,
Yeah.
Okay.
which they flat out came out and said, this is Finrod.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
So one thing that I noticed, I mentioned this when I was chatting with Don, is that
That's
you might not notice this with Amazon Prime, but pro tip, if you pause at any point or hover your finger over the screen
Yeah.
or what have you, when you pause it, it will post up pictures of every actor that is currently on the screen with who they are
So
playing,
helpful
along
for
with some
me.
trivia sometimes.
Yeah.
So yes, when you pause the screen and that actor is on there, he is listed as Finrod. So
Yeah. Okay.
And they absolutely couldn't do the other brothers. They are not mentioned. They are only mentioned
Yeah.
in the Silmarillion.
Right,
So
and
it has to be
Angrod
Finrod.
and Aegnor?
Aegnor,
Yeah.
Angrod and Aegnor.
Angrod and Aegnor.
Oh.
All right, Chris.
Sorry. I love
Chris
you guys.
just flexing on it.
Y'all-
Chris
y'all-
just
I'm gonna
y'all
say it
say
wrong,
wrong, but I
I'm
love you.
gonna say it wrong forever. I refuse
It's
to.
totally
I cannot.
The only person I have beef with pronunciation is Colbert because he started it.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Never let
He
it
who
go.
must not be named. You know who.
You know who.
Oh my
I'm
god.
sitting there.
No, I don't.
I'm
mind
sitting
when
there
you guys-
standing next to Chris when it happened. I'm like, but this is my friend he's attacking. Like, what do I do? Like,
It's a playful beef. I really
I-
don't
I
care that
know.
much, but it's so much fun to feign insult, you know?
No, I know you couldn't win that battle because of who he was and what he does. Nobody was going to win that.
Oh
in
yeah,
that
no.
position.
It was
Anybody on
a
the stage,
setup
him
for a
yelling,
joke.
Yeah,
People like, you realize it was a joke, right? I'm like, no, I get that it was a joke, and I'm fine with it. I really am fine with it.
We
Like,
know you were right.
It makes good content though.
Meanwhile, over on my podcast, I am calling Findualos Fendi. I'm calling Maggie.
As you should. Don't put too much thought into this,
it's
right?
fine. It's fine.
Oh,
Whatever
that's not
helps you
crazy.
remember the characters, honestly, because so many names get dropped.
Meanwhile, I am still always mixing up Fingon and Finrod, and I
do that
just
too.
gave up
Mary,
at this
I do
point.
that too.
But Mary, let me just tell you
That
something.
took a while. That doesn't sink in until like your second or third read through. Like it
It's
It's
cute that you
okay.
think I'll have a second read through.
Mary,
yeah,
your map hatred video triggered me. I just want you to know that. It triggered me. And I was like, little does she know that is the best part of the book. Get a map, and go. You will, I'm telling you.
I'm
that's how you
ending
will
this
learn.
conversation
That's
right
how you
now.
learn
We
everything.
need to
For
talk
context.
about this episode.
That's how you will learn.
Yeah.
Reset. New.
We'll have
It's
to
okay. It's
continue
okay.
this for an after show episode or
Absolutely.
something.
You said you found a map. Pay attention when they're doing it, and you'll be like, "Oh, now I know everything."
Except for Angband is not even on the map.
Well, it's right
Children.
above the map. It's right above the map.
Children.
It's right above the map. We know this. We know
Kids,
that the blank
kids,
space is
calm.
changed.
Mom and Dad are calling in to stop to this fight. Chris,
separate
it's-
corners, kids.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay,
no,
so
but no, the context
Galadriel's
is,
motivation
maps
in
are
this
important.
series, she is going after Sauron because in this version of the story, Finrod dies in the battle against Sauron. In the book, this is when I had to go back and double check it. I was like, wait a minute, which one is
That
Fingon?
wasn't
Which
right,
one is
was it?
Finrod? He dies in Beren and Luthien's story.
But actually, I think this is a misunderstanding. We were listening too quickly. They actually kind of fixed it. But they didn't fix it. They never messed it up. We heard it wrong. Galadriel says he dies hunting him, but Sauron found him first. Sauron did find him first.
Sauron, because
Sauron
he
found him.
died trying to fight
But
Morgoth.
they
Sauron.
Okay, no. This is you guys trying to meddle.
The wording is very important. The word is very important. He's in a battle.
Yeah, I would say
that battle could have been the bracket.
The visual context that they put this in is misleading.
Yeah.
That I will
it's
give.
Misleading, but it can be saved. It can be salvaged because.
But they did hint at the truth. They did hint at the actual canon.
If you listen to the wordage, Sauron found him first, which is exactly what happens. He tries to sneak past Bo Syrian, and Sauron finds him. However else he dies is irrelevant. And then you see him laying there with claw marks on him, like a wolf killed him.
Man, y'all are crushing the one thing that I was watching the show, and I was like, well, actually,
I was so mad.
I'm mad about this. Let me be mad.
I mean, I wasn't mad about. I was just so thrilled and pleased with myself that I was like, oh my god, I know how he actually died.
You're like, I know a piece of lore that they didn't get completely right.
So Galadriel is leading this hunt for Sauron, and this is, I think this is where I saw a lot of criticism that people were saying the setup was really slow, and it was very slow moving in the first episode, and I think it was like this first, 10 minutes of showing her with the army or whatever, the group of elves that were searching for Sauron in some fortress in the north, and then they have an encounter with and then all of the elves, there's an encounter with an ice troll, and then she's like, all right, let's get going, and they're like, you're crazy, we quit. We're going home.
You should have seen my face when they all just sort of like sat down their swords and like, we're not going. I was like, oh, mutiny in the first episode. I liked seeing that like Galadriel is so strong-willed that like everyone around her is like, girl, calm down.
It's like, she's nuts.
Like, we know your heart is in it.
I can't wait for people to complain about the fact that Galadriel is an unlikable character, quote unquote, just because like she is exhibiting like typically male traits in this character. That is.
Oh, see, I'm like, bring it on. I want there to be a lot of gray area with these characters. I want people to question, wait, are we really on the right side here? Is this doesn't feel comfortable, because there is a lot of gray area and wiggle room for these characters. I think that's what will make Galadriel such a long-living character, because we know where she ends up. She ends up as the Lady of Light in Lothlorien, but we have to go on a journey to get there. And I think making her not 100% likable is good. Because people aren't 100% like
that's the truth.
Character arcs.
Yeah, character arcs, my friends. People are like, oh, I didn't like that Elrond is, this baby diplomat. Where's warrior Elrond? I'm like, let him get there first. I'm like, he has to start somewhere. Character arcs.
Well, I for one didn't like how they were talking to Elrond and Galadriel. I thought that was a bit much.
Hang on, I'm going to pause us before we go forward, because I know Don has to jump off. So, Don, do you want to
say I can only stay?
No worries. Do you want to share any, a final thought before you jump off?
Yes, I will summarize thusly. I thought the episodes were really good. I'm still very curious to see what they will do with the Southlands character. I have my theories about Man on the Ship when you all get to episode 2. I'm going to rant about that later. Just in the same way that I will see this from so many people. You remember when Aragorn opens the 2 doors in the 2 towers? There's a scene where Halbrand in the second episode dips his hand into the water and slicks his hair back, and I just went, oh, okay, that's how we're doing this? Okay.
Immediately, I'll have to save it for the next episode. Oh my God.
And there's the eye candy.
Just a bunch of beautiful people sticking together.
I'm really mad about the fact that they're trying to hint at some kind of enemies to lovers thing with Galadriel in the sky, and then Celeborn is just floating around in the universe somewhere. Anyway,
I so hope that like the end of this season is just like Galadriel going back to a forest somewhere, being like, "Hi, honey, how was your trip, babe?"
Yeah, and Celeborn just being like, "Had your adventure, huh? Welcome home."
Yeah.
Because him being cool with her just having complete autonomy, I think that would be a great way to drag
I would
him in
love
at
that.
the very
I would love that. I'm
end.
very
I
excited.
would love it.
Okay, I do have to wrap up. I loved the episodes. I can't wait to hear the rest of what you all have to say. New and Mary, play nice. Chris, if they get into fights, separate them. And I will see you all.
It's war.
War.
I'll see you all next
The map.
time.
The map.
Hey, language. No, I'm just kidding. It's fine.
It's my podcast, and I'll swear if I. Okay, I'm out.
Dram the long wall.
See you.
Bye,
Absolutely true.
Don.
Thanks
you
for
all.
thank you
Thanks
so
for
much for
hopping
being
on.
here.
Bye.
Dallas did in the guarded plane.
Okay, well, now that he's gone.
Now that Dad is gone.
Yeah, so Galadriel returns from this search for Sauron to Lindon, the high elf capital, where we see Elrond sit much like Frodo in the beginning of Fellowship, just sitting in a tree writing and being
Sitting in a tree,
scholarly.
writing.
Yeah.
People were like, what is he talking about? And there's only like a tiny throwaway line while he's walking to greet Galadriel that he hands the note off to someone and says, for the ceremony. Everything he was writing was for Gil-galad's speech. And then later on, you see him mouthing the words while Gil-galad is giving the speech.
Is that what that
Yeah,
was?
you see him mouthing,
Yeah.
He wrote the speech. But she's his herald and his banner bearer.
And that's why he crosses out animal on his notepad and he rephrases it to what was it, a spoilt carcass?
Ew.
In the actual speech, Gil-galad says
Yeah.
spoiled carcass. And so it's obvious he's making edits to this thing and then handing it
really
off so
cool.
Gil-galad can make his speech.
Oh, thank you for
And then
that
you see that they're in
connection
league.
there.
And that they're in league with each other, convincing Galadriel to go.
Yeah.
Because Elrond is just like, I don't think this was the right choice. And Gil-galad is just like, she's looking toward the past, we have to look toward the future.
Which
Yes,
that
yeah.
I understood
And
because he has the longest
Yeah.
reign of peace. He's the longest reigning High King of the Noldor. So why would he want to admit that, hey, something could be wrong? I just want to maintain this peace. We haven't found anything. You're going to scare everybody else. You're doing the most. I understand that. But the way they were talking to Galadriel and talking to Elrond as a lore master, I absolutely hated that. So if I'm being like full disclosure, I didn't like it because it just doesn't make any sense. But I also have to come outside of myself and realize that they can't say Galadriel is his aunt. They can't say Galadriel is his cousin if that's the case. They can't say that. They can't say all that stuff. They can't, Elrond literally is the savior of the world's son, is part Maya, is in line for throne of the Sindar and the Noldor. Like, they wouldn't be talking to him like that. They wouldn't say, you can't come to this meeting. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I was
That would not happen.
running-
Lord, elf
Yeah, like,
lords
what are you
only.
Yeah, I was
elf
running
lords
through.
only.
That was like such a little burn, like elf lords only, and I'm like, oh my god!
And you
like,
just see him go.
Like,
he's like,
really?
Thanks. Like, you didn't need to add
Like,
that. That was unnecessary.
If Gil-galad were to die,
And I wonder if if they actually were trying to, without naming the characters, give a nod to the fact that Elrond was partly raised by the Feanorians, the Kinslayers. And especially with all of the refugees from the Havens at the end of the First Age ending up in Lindon, it would kind of make sense that there might be a grudge there. Like, it's a bit of a stretch, but I didn't like the way they talked to Elrond either. I thought that was very strange.
At one
but
point,
maybe
I had
again,
to
it's a
have,
character
like,
arc thing. I don't know.
I had to go through my head, and I was like, wait a minute, isn't he is the nephew of Gil-galad? Why are they?
Yeah, aren't they related?
Yeah, because Gil-galad. Okay. So, yeah, because Gil-galad and Idril are brother and sister, right? They're both Turgon's children.
Idril.
And
No, not Torgon.
Who are you talking about? You talking about Gil-galad? Gil-galad, depending upon which retcon we're going. There are a couple of them.
There are a
So
couple versions
we're
of
going
Gil-galad,
in-
which is why it gets
if
confusing.
we're going in the Fingolfin line, right? He would be Fingon's son. So that would make him Galadriel's cousin once removed. And Elrond would be his distant cousin. Okay? So, but Elrond would be next in line for the throne.
He would be.
So it goes to the eldest living male from the House of Finwë. Whoever.
right, because
It can't go to Celebrimbor, who it would actually supposed to be, because that line got removed.
Yeah, from the
It got
original
removed
line.
from that line altogether.
The throne was abdicated by Maedhros
So
back in the first
Yes.
age. So the Feanorians don't get to be.
So it would
rulers
go
like
to
that.
it would
They
go
don't
to
get to be
Elrond.
kings, but they can still be lords.
So they would not. It just absolutely would not talk to him. The only reason Elrond isn't the king in the third age is because there's no more Noldor like that. There's just a few of them. So what are you the king of? Even Elrond is also the heir of the Sindar line as well. He's the heir of the Sindar. Elrond.
Yeah, that's the wonderful thing about
crazy.
Elrond's character is Elrond is tied
Everything.
to literally every major plot point that happens. This poor character is going to be just absolutely drug through the mud. But he is descended from both the lines of the elves.
It was so interesting when I was finishing up the Silmarillion, because the last chapter is you see Elrond be born, and then he's like essentially orphaned, and so I was like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna get to see
twice.
Like, I know I know that he is obviously a main character in Rings of Power, so it was really, I was like, I'm gonna get to see like where this picks up from, like maybe there's like some missing,
like all is really emotional damage and trauma from a very young age for Elrond.
That's
really
kind of how
sad.
it goes.
Poor baby Elrond.
That's how it goes for these elves typically.
His parents, full disclosure,
Commentary
his parents
for what
are still
happens
alive.
when you're immortal.
They're still alive. So
yeah, they're still alive.
they're just in the sky.
They're just not present.
They're just like
they can't come
absentee.
back,
off
but
doing
they're
their
still-
own thing. Anyway, they are sent in order to, because they're ready to move on to the future, and Galadriel's being a stick in the mud, and she's like, nah, there's still evil out there. Sauron's still out there. So they send her and the company. Their reward is being sent over to the Undying Lands. And we have such a great sequence of the ship sailing off and seeing like the clouds part open as they're looking, and the sun, you don't actually
It's beautiful.
see anything. You just see the light streaming through the clouds, and then you see Galadriel take a step back, and I'm like, oh yes. And at the last second she dives over the edge, and like that's where we see her at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about that, because visually absolutely stunning. Like, oh my goodness, what a beautiful visual for entering that other plane of existence to go to Valinor. But like, there was something vaguely cultish.
Oh, totally.
About we're going to disrobe everyone. Like, I get it, because what you're doing is you are removing the symbols of war. You're taking away their weapons. You cannot go into the Undying Lands, especially the Noldor, armed. They're not going to let you do that. So like, I get it from the lore perspective, but I think for people who don't understand the context of why that would be meaningful, it probably came like, and suddenly everyone is singing.
Yeah.
Except Galadriel. And I think I don't know if it was intentional that they wanted to make people feel that same sort of discomfort that Galadriel feels, where there's something holding her back. This doesn't feel right. This is against the character. I don't know if they meant for us to feel that, but it did feel like vaguely uncomfortable for me.
Yeah, I
like,
totally
it's so
felt
beautiful,
that too.
and it's like, you should want this. This should be everything that you desire, and yet it's not. And I got that feeling as a viewer, but I wasn't sure if it was intentional or not.
All right, do we want to switch to talking about the Harfoots?
Sure, let's talk about it.
Oh, the Harfoots.
Right.
They're so sweet.
My friend who was texting me that she like kind of begrudgingly enjoyed it was like, it took me a minute to get into the Harfoots. I loved them the moment they popped up, where you see them like hiding among the woods and camouflaging themselves, and they've built little like it felt very like Lost Boys to me, from like Hook and Peter Pan, those movies. I love the Harfoots. That's like
the other reference that came to my mind is in, I think it's like 1950 Wizard of Oz.
Yes, with the
where the munchkins pop out of the ground, and all of their heads are like flowers, and so they blended with the scenery until they reveal themselves. That was the same sort of vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, it does have that I know exactly what you're saying with the munchkins like hiding among the flowers.
I like
the little people that just you're not looking for them. So
and I like that it showed that
Yeah.
they're precursors to the actual hobbits who are settled in holes. This is how they migrate. This is how they hide. It's very much,
and they don't really care about anything outside their own community. This is just a nomadic version.
Yes. I love, so the travelers that we see beforehand, they're like, oh my God, that was a Harfoot. We got to get out of here. They're crazy little creatures. So clearly like
that's in line with Tolkien's work too, because
they've made this reputation for themselves so that people leave them alone.
Right. No, that's so quintessential Tolkien. Like that was the
everybody
whole point
from other lands that don't know about them, but they know about them. It's always a mythos that they don't fully know. Like the little people, the Perianov, the halflings, they're magic. They might like it's funny. Even when you go to Rohan and they mention the halfling or a hobbit or whatever, they're like they know about hearing about some kind of magic little guy, and then.
They're like, we thought those were just fairy tales.
And it's very reminiscent of that. That's why I really enjoyed that when they did that. I love the nomadic aspect of them. It shows, like I said, the precursor to the actual hobbits. And we started in Rovanian. So it's like, everybody's saying, oh, the hobbits weren't there. No, they weren't. But look at what we're doing. And they very much are part necessarily of the main story, but are they? But indirectly. And they do a good job of that. They're like not directly involved in anything. It's just happenstances.
Yeah, I like that they presented the Harfoots as being people who wouldn't want to be part of the story, but they end up being thrust into the story.
Yes, which is
Nori and Poppy are not asking for any of this, especially Poppy. I feel like Poppy's going to be like, like so frustrated with all of the trouble that Nori is going to get them into, especially with the stranger, the meteor man.
Yes,
that falls from the sky.
So Nori is our blue-eyed hobbit, which like she just looks so much like Frodo. Like I don't know if they intentionally were like we're going for a Frodo look. But her face totally reminds me of Frodo. And just like wonder and excitement, and she wants adventure in the great wide somewhere,
right?
And she has that conversation with her mom where we have to lay down the exposition of like, no, we Harfoots don't go on adventures.
We don't do adventures.
Yeah, maybe
we stick
like
to our own people.
Leave it alone. just stay right here where you at.
At the end of the episode, we see a meteor, a comet coming through the sky, and all of our various characters are watching it, and it crashes on like the outskirts of their little colony that they've set up, and she goes and finds it, and that's just so it's just so in line with Tolkien of like the biggest things happening to the smallest, most unimportant, unassuming people in his world. Mm-hmm. And we have this closing shot of a man lying in a crater in the earth, and we'll have to find, I think he's referred to as the Stranger. The fandom has been calling him Meteor Man, which just makes me think of the Smash Mouth song. Yeah, that's where the episode ends. I should add, I feel bad, we kind of like brushed over Bronwyn, but Bronwyn and Arondir, they've got a little love connection going on.
Our cross lovers there.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Bronwyn is we see very early on, like, not only is she a single mother taking care of her kid, teenager, but also, like, she's really got the job of being a community leader. She's a healer by trade, but she's also a bit of a community leader, and she has to sort of take the reins because no one else wants to admit when something's going wrong, and she's like, you need evidence, here's your freaking evidence. In the second episode, but she gets a bit more screen time in the second episode.
And in this episode, we see them, someone brings their cow to be looked at, and Arondir is there, and there's like some black goop coming out of it, which I was like,
I'm making a face.
I'm not messing
I was
with that.
squicked there. I didn't like it at all.
That's some demon right there. I'm not touching that.
And she's the connection that's the turning point between the relationship of the elves and the men with Arondir. Because even Arondir
She's the
is
linchpin.
like, well, their connection was strong with them. But she's like, but you love me though. And I'm from this village.
Yeah, she's like, don't you trust
So
me? Like, these are my kinsmen and my
not
friends.
all of us are bad. She's that piece right there to where it's like he's gonna have to make a decision. Eventually, you're gonna see to where, all right, I have to stop thinking about the men and these prejudices.
These prejudices are gonna have to be put aside at some point, and I think that's a nice
good
character journey to have and show.
Yeah, so together they go to investigate because there was talk earlier about like, oh, in the east this crop of grass was poisoned, so they go to investigate the nearby the other village and see that it has been like completely destroyed and burned to the ground, and then that's when they see the meteor pass over. So that's kind of what their storyline's been doing. And then, we do see Bronwyn taking charge and being like, I'm going to investigate, and Arondir being like, I'm coming too. Or maybe it was the reverse of that or something. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, and I guess also worth mentioning, Bronwyn's son Theo in the floorboards of a barn finds some kind of shattered remains.
Witch King.
What was that? What was that new?
I think he's the Witch King, man. I feel like
he's got a lot of anger. He's got a lot of anger. He's got his friend. He got his friend talking in his ear. He's like, Mom, you dating this guy? What if his friend is Sauron? Like, I'm sure all the theories,
joking.
Like anybody could be Sauron at this point. And so like the internet is going crazy just saying
everyone's like, who's Sauron? Yeah. So let's move into making some predictions and theories. Right now I have none. My one theory is that the Meteor Man was Tom Bombadil.
Bombadil's already there.
Bombadil was already there the whole time.
I know, but like, wouldn't that make sense for his origin that he came crashing to Earth in a meteor?
No, because he's the eldest. He's the eldest, so he always was there.
He's the eldest and fatherless.
So badly.
We're like, no, Mary, you can't have this.
I know. I just wanted him to see him pop up with those yellow boots on and a yellow hat and just be singing his song. So yeah, I don't have any theories or predictions. You're running theories that Theo's the Witch King.
My theory is that Theo is the Witch King. I changed my theory that the Meteor Man was one of the Blues. I think he's probably Gandalf now, which I think they're going to just try to, milk that because everybody loves Gandalf. I saw the Gandalf mark that he made. I don't know if he was referring to finding Gandalf or he was Gandalf.
Yeah, but the Elvish with the stranger, the stuff that he's sort of yelling at Nori at one point is Manna Ure. And those words in Quenya, there are a couple possibilities. It all depends on if they have the accents right on the first word. It can either mean what, blessing or blessed, or whether, or like whither or where to. Like there are 3 different translations for that word, but Ure is fire. And so he's asking, what is fire? Or he's saying blessed fire, in which case I am wielder of the flame of our servant of the sacred fire. And I'm like, the sacred fire this time? So yeah, like the obvious the obvious signs point to Gandalf. I'm hoping it's not that obvious. I hope it isn't Gandalf just because they shouldn't do that, but I feel like they're going to do that. So that's my theory, that he's Gandalf. What we know of Amazon is different than what we are hoping through the lore. Yeah, I hope they don't, but I feel like they did, which is like a payoff for many fans. They're going to get like, but like lore masters aren't going to like it. So, yeah. Fan favorite, but it's like bringing the elves to Helm's Deep. Like it was not at all canonical, but people liked the elves. There were no elves really in the second movie for the Peter Jackson trilogy, so they added them to Helm's Deep. And we didn't like it, but I didn't like it. I was like, this doesn't happen. Like Helder doesn't die. How dare you? Like he doesn't die. What is happening? But it works for the movie. We might just be unpleasantly confirmed that it may be Gandalf. I'm hoping it's not that simple.
Gil-galad, I feel like they're going to build his character because they have to.
Yeah.
I feel right now you're kind of looking at him as a bit of a dick because of the way he kind of thrust Galadriel from the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But he is looked at as like, and he is talked about even in the Fellowship of the Ring. Just he's revered, and he's talked about with such reverence that they have to change his character arc to where he's respected more, and that you're not looking at him crazy. Because right now I'm looking at him a little sideways, like
yeah, same.
Really, Gil-galad? Like,
but again, this is just the starting point. We have to start. I think because we know how things end, we have to change our expectations of where the characters are starting, because that's the part of the story that's untold.
Cool. You guys just know so much more than I do, and I'm just happy to be along for the ride, you know.
Are you happy though?
Enjoying the show as it comes.
You hate a lot on the Silmarillion. Are you happy, man?
Are you actually happy? The Silmarillion is a tough book to read. Like, there's no way around it. But for us lore geeks, it's like the Bible.
I get it. Like, I understand that for some people, it's just like, I
just want to shake you.
You want more of the thing you love. I 100% understand it, and you want to go into all those details. But like, for me, I didn't need those details from Tolkien. The man is insane.
It's realistic. I feel that, you know, not everyone is going to read stuff like a history text and enjoy it. You know, like, and that's okay. That's why when people ask us, do I have to read? Do I have to read the books to enjoy the TV show? I'm like, absolutely not.
And also,
I'm like, you will understand things in a different way if you read the books. But is it required? No.
Yeah, when
they're going to try and do good storytelling.
Do I need to read the Silmarillion to watch Rings of Power? Absolutely not, because they glossed over everything that happened in the Silmarillion in the first 2 minutes, and that's all you need to know.
That's all you need to
know.
You know,
I keep telling people, if you want to read what this bit of the story is based on, just read the Akalabeth and of the Rings of Power in the Third Age. Those are two short stories. It's a tiny snippet of the Silmarillion.
What's ironic is that those are the two parts I have not read yet because I ran out of time.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite chapters is of the Rings of Power in the Third Age
is fantastic.
That is a really good chapter.
It's great.
It gives you so much exposition on the Third Age of what happened, and you know the Third Age. But all the stuff like behind the scenes that you didn't really know what going on, it does a great job of talking about that.
It sets up the Second Age very well.
It sets the Second Age up perfectly, like things that are happening. And I wish they would have got the rights to that.
Yeah,
that would have been amazing.
Agree. I absolutely agree.
The rings, the Akalabeth and that, we would have been sitting golden. But oh well.
I just want them to sell the rights to the Silmarillion to someone, you know?
Oh man, the Tolkien estate is clutching those, and they're going to be clutching those with their cold dead fingers. Like they do not want to give up rights to the Silm.
94-year clause or some crap.
Well, yeah, that's what some guests on a previous episode and I were talking about, is that one day the Silmarillion is going to enter public domain, which is why like there's so many different stories of Sherlock Holmes, is because that's in public domain.
It's in public domain now. Yeah,
I can't wait for the Silmarillion. We might all be dead by then. Who knows? But
probably.
But when the Silmarillion enters public domain, people can make whatever versions of whatever stories they want to out of that.
Yeah, it would be fascinating to see all of the adaptations, because there are so many different storylines in the film that you really could make a huge amount of content out of it.
Yeah.
And you can have a bunch of different takes on the same content. Yeah, it would be fascinating, but I don't think we'll be around for that.
Yeah. So, well, our grandchildren are
right.
Yeah, maybe if I ever have them. I
so
don't know.
can we give our episode 2 favorites?
Let's save that for some after show bonus stuff. So let's wrap up this main feed episode, and then we'll continue on, and we can chat more. I am
A-okay with that.
Okay, cool. Thank you both for joining me, and Don, if you're listening out there in the ether.
We love you, Don. Shout out, Don.
I will link Don's stuff in the episode description, obviously. Where can people find y'all on the internet?
So you can find me on TikTok as my main platform. KnewBetta, KnewBetta, TTA. I spell it the getaway. You can find me on Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, all under KnewBettadobetta. You put in New, you're going to find me first. So please come follow me.
My name is Chris. My handle on all social media is WizardWayKris, and it's Chris with a K. I have a Twitter thread with all of the Elvish and Dwarvish details that I pick out of these episodes, and I try and post that very quickly. So if you're curious about that stuff, either follow me over on Twitter or on TikTok, which is my main platform as well.
Also, before we go, I have a podcast. If you guys want to join, I have a podcast just like Mary. I co-host with a friend, Callie Cosplay. It's called Voices of Artists. So you can also search that YouTube, Google Podcasts, also what is it called? The thing,
Apple.
Spotify. There you go. You got to get it on. You got to get it on Apple. But yeah, it's called Voices of Arda, and me and Callie Cosplay co-host it, and it's wonderful. Please check it out.
It's a kick.
Yes, and
Highly
Callie
recommend.
is equally wonderful. We love her too.
He is the GOAT.
Yes. That's What I'm Talking About is a proud member of WBNE. If you want to learn more about the network, you can go to wbne.org. The cover art is by Vaishon Brandon. You can support him on Instagram at Vaishon Designs. You can get merch for That's What I'm Talking About by going to tpublic.com/user/talkingaboutpod. Here is your seasonal reminder that there is autumnal hobbity merch available if you want to get into those fall vibes, even if it's still 90 degrees where you live, like it is where I am. You can follow the podcast on social media at TolkienAboutPod, and you can follow me on Twitter at MCWattsUp and on Instagram at MCTurnedDownForWatt. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/TolkienAboutPod. You can join the WBNE Discord server where you can engage with people who are not me about Rings of Power, along with a variety of other things from D&D to books to music to even just sending a selfie and saying, hey, I think I look cute today. You can join the 11sies tier, which will get you access to bonus content, like I recorded with Chris and New after the official episode concluded, just because there was still so much to be said. Or you can become a sponsor of the podcast like Eamon. Eamon, you're a wonderful person. I hope if you are watching Rings of Power that you are enjoying it and you are finding enjoyment. And if you're not watching it, then hey, what are you doing listening to this episode? I don't want to spoil anything for you. Go watch it now. But also you should know that you're a wonderful person. If you like what you're listening to, please make sure to rate and review. Spotify has ratings. That's a more recent thing within the past year, I think. So you can make this a 5-star podcast, or you can even write a little review on Apple Podcasts and put your full heart and soul into it so that other people will read it and go, oh wow, this podcast sounds amazing and I think I'll listen to it. All right, do either of you have parting words for the audience?
Peace and love, man. If you don't like the show, man, that is okay. You're welcome to it. Don't be hate-filled. Just, you know what I'm saying, go your separate way if you don't like the show. There's no need to do all of that. You know, let's all get along, man. You know, like Rodney King said, let's all get along. Let's let everybody enjoy fantasy. Stop gatekeeping. Let's just enjoy something for once. It doesn't have to be all this negativity all the time. It's tiresome. If you don't like something, you're not going to die.
It's okay.
Nobody's
it's okay
dying
if people are not enjoying it, but then they don't need to watch. Like, no one is going to force you. And, there are going to be very valid criticisms from fans who are just like, I want to enjoy it and I just can't. And I'm like, that's okay. But like New is saying, give it a chance. It's going to be a slow burn. There's a lot of plot to cover. And we have to start somewhere. So I encourage people to give the first season a try. And if they botch the ending of the first season and don't hook you into the second season, then leave it there. And that is okay. But this is we know this is fanfic. Okay. Fan fiction is not a dirty word, but these adaptations are all going to have departures from canon. And I think we all just need to be realistic about it and enjoy it for what it is and not hate it for what it isn't.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I like that. I saw what you did there.